Basically, where we're at right now is pretty much on the hour since you've done this awesome presentation and shared a lot of, that I guess that high level ideas and just got us thinking about the wonderful world of frequent flyers to the point that Nat's sitting here saying to me, how do we get into this ourselves? Because we're not credit card holders. So, and I know that's been sort of some of the big questions. But yeah, if everyone wants to stick around just for a little bit longer, probably another 20 minutes or so, we've got how many questions? We're about a dozen or so questions here. And also, we want to share with you something that Travis just shared with us just a little while ago that is a massive help. I know that when I go to look for how am I going to get from here to the next place, and I want to get creative around the destinations or where to go, I use Skyscanner usually, but Travis just showed us a really cool tool from Google that you cannot even find on Google. So how about we answer these questions first, because we're still in frequent flyer mode right now, and then we go over onto the cheap flights, which also works as a really good research tool to find out even what cities you can get to. Does that sound okay?
Right. That sounds great by me. Yeah, let's get to these questions, and then we'll give them the little special Google secret.
All right, sweet. Okay, so we had a question quite a while ago from Linda, actually, and she's very patiently waited for this. She said that with her Air Miles credit card, she does get cheap travel cancellation and medical insurance for about $120 a year. Do you get that same kind of insurance with a travel credit card?
Yeah, so a lot of each travel credit card is different, and we didn't even hit on the perks. We kind of hit on the big thing, right? Here are the frequent flyer miles. What's really cool about these upper-end travel credit cards is they offer other what I just call secondary perks. Some of them will offer the travel insurance, the same one that she mentioned with the Air Miles card. Some of them will offer things like primary or secondary car insurance, like rental car insurance, which is a huge one. So, for example, I just rented a car in Austin, Texas. I used my Chase Ink Plus card because what that does is I don't have to get the rental car insurance that they try to sell you then, because I'm covered as long as I book with that credit card. They will cover me if anything happens. So there's the travel insurance is a big one. The car insurance is a big one. There's even purchase insurance on a lot of them that will be something like, hey, your warranty runs out after a year, but if you bought it with this credit card, we give you an extra year. So I always try to make sure I buy like computers or TVs. I don't really buy TVs. I don't have a house, but computers or like big ticket items on a credit card that gives me that purchase insurance because it's just an extra thing. So every card has different things. For example, there's cards that give you like free checked bags as well. So each card is a little different, but there are those secondary perks, and they're usually pretty good. There's a lot of really cool secondary perks with that. Even from like priority check-in, like I said, to checked bags. Some of them that you have a bigger annual fee actually give you lounge access. So I have one that gives me airport lounge access, so it doesn't matter if I'm flying with American Airlines or whatever. I can go into the American Airlines lounge whenever I'm in an airport that has one because I have a certain credit card. So there are a lot of those really neat secondary perks to the travel credit cards.
Awesome. Yeah, look, we're just to stick with the credit card things here. I've actually got questions primarily from Australians and Canadians. We've got a few Canadians and Australians, so it is actually the next day in Down Under at the moment. And if you could sort of run off maybe some credit card company names that you've used. And the Canadians are asking, do the Canadian credit cards work as well as the American credit cards?
Yeah, so as far as different countries, here's what I always tell people who come from different countries. Everything that I taught you about how to use frequent flyer miles is the exact same. The only difference comes with what credit cards you can get in different countries. Once you get the points, everything works the same. There's still online shopping. You still get, bonuses for opening cards, all that. With Canada specifically, so the U.S. used to have really high bonuses, and they're kind of falling a little bit, and the Canadians used to have really bad bonuses, and they're kind of coming up. So actually, in the next 2 years, possibly, we could be fairly equal. Canadians probably have the second best bonus options behind Americans. And there are some really good websites I can recommend. For example, rewardscanada.ca is a guy who does a really fantastic job breaking down the Canadian credit card market. Because on my side, I break down the U.S. credit card market because that's what I know and what we do. And but the Canadians definitely can benefit, and it's only on the upswing. So, for example, one of the really good credit card companies in the U.S. is Chase, and they have really great travel credit cards, and they're actually making inroads into Canada, and they're kind of the people who pushed the game ahead in the U.S. Once they came in and started offering better bonuses and doing really nice things for the credit card holders, everyone else had to follow. So American Express and Capital One and all them kind of had to follow suit. So they really pushed everything ahead for us, and they're actually starting to make inroads in Canada. They have like a Chase Marriott card now. They also have a Chase Amazon card. So there are a few cards in the last couple of years that are Chase-based that are making inroads in Canada. So I think you're going to see that really become much more lucrative, and it's already fairly lucrative for Canadians. A little worse than Americans, but fairly lucrative. Aussies, it's a little different. It's not as lucrative, the credit cards. I would say it's a distant third behind Canadians and Americans. But again, there have been people who've gone through boot camp who are Australians, and once you figure out the cards that work for you, it might take you a little while to get the points. But once you get them, everything still works the exact same way. You still use them the same way and things like that. I've had this question, and maybe someone is thinking this too, like, well, if I'm not a U.S. citizen or a resident, can I be an Australian and apply for like U.S. credit cards? The answer is no. The only way you can really do it is if you are a resident here, or if you have a job here or something like that can give you some sort of like basis. Like if you have a residency or if you get paid by an American company, sometimes you can work that out. But as far as actually like, I'm just an Australian, I live in Australia, I'm trying to apply for U.S. credit cards, you can't do that. Just to kind of hopefully jump on that question if anyone had that question.
Yeah, no worries. There was a couple of questions about amalgamating frequent flyer points from a different credit airline. And I'll just give you the other one to see which one you want to answer first, because I think we talked about this earlier. Dee has actually mentioned that if you have a lot of credit cards do cost, and that she's heard that it's not so great for credit rating to have lots of cards. Despite what the credit limit is, it's all calculated into your debt. I know you guys have talked about that a lot. Can you share maybe that one first and then look at maybe the amalgamation?
Yeah, sure. So the credit thing is something we could do a webinar just on the credit cards and credit scores. So a real quick example that I use to make it pretty understandable with the credit score. I always tell people to start off slow, and that's exactly what I did. So if you're brand new to this, I always say like get 1, maybe 2 credit cards, travel credit cards in the beginning. Understand how they work, pay them off, set up auto payments, do all that kind of stuff that you would do normally with any regular credit card, and make sure you do that. And then as you progress, then you can go down and open up more. So for example, when I first started, I got like 1, and then I got a second one. So in the past 4 years, I've opened up a bunch of credit cards. And so the credit score question is a really good one. It actually, the more available credit you have open, the better your credit score will be. As long as, I want to put a caveat out there, like as long as you're paying off your credit card. If you're not paying off your credit card, then I'd like you to leave the webinar, honestly, because I don't want anyone to screw anything up. Like, you have to be paying off your credit card. It's only for people who are doing that anyway. So what happens, and this is the example I use, like if I came up to, if Nat, or let's say if Jody, if you came up to me and you said, hey, can I borrow like $100 from you? And I had no idea who you were, and you just came up on the street from me, I'd probably, and you're like, I'll pay you back. Of course I'll pay you back. I'd say like, no way, I'm not going to give you $100. I don't even know who you are. Why can I trust you to give it back? If you came up to me and you said, hey, Trav, can I borrow $100? And Nat and Natalie and Heather and there are like 4 or 5 people there, and they're saying like, hey, Jody's borrowed $100 from me before, and she's always paid it back. She's really good for it. I would probably consider it. I'd say, hey, these are people that I know. Okay, like let's consider it. And then if you came up to me and said, can I borrow $100, and there was 20 people there, and every one of them that I knew said, hey, Jody has always paid me back every time on time, I'd probably feel pretty confident in lending you the money. And that's kind of how the credit thing works. As you get more credit, you become more trustworthy. And so they see you as less of a chance to default, which is what affects them. And so if you have 30 credit cards and you've always paid them back, they're like, well, why would he all of a sudden default on 30 credit cards if he's never defaulted before? Whereas if I'm the first person to give him a credit card, I don't have any idea if he's going to or not. You know, it's kind of like a guessing game. So that's kind of in layman's terms, that's how that works. And as you build more credit, your credit to debt ratio also goes down. So as you know, if you have one credit card and it gives you $5,000 credit limit, or you have 10 and they all give you $5,000, now all of a sudden you have $50,000 in available credit. That helps keep your credit score high because your debt, if it's 0, is a higher ratio because you have more available credit to you. So I have seen, as a personal example, in the last 4 years, my credit score has gone from like 720, 725 to, after opening up 30 different cards, it's now up at like 780, 790. So that isn't something I would recommend people do right away, but as you keep doing it, your credit score will continue to go up little by little by little by little. It actually will help your credit score in the long run.
Yeah, look, I think that's a really fantastic, metaphor and an analogy there. And also, I think what it comes down to is, and maybe in response to Gail and Randy's question here, saying when applying for credit cards, if you don't have an annual income, such as they're retired, it's about going and asking those questions. Even Natalie was telling us today here that, if she hadn't have asked, she wouldn't have got. It's like whatever travel card is out there or bank or anything, you really do need to be just asking these questions and get the answers yourself and get the information direct from the card companies. And, of course, in the Frequent Flyer Bootcamp Facebook group, of course, there's so many people that are giving the recommendations of the different cards from the different countries as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. And we've had the one of like small income is an interesting one because that happens. I've had a lot of college students come to me and say, like, Trav, I really want to get interested into this, but I'm a college student, this and that. And I've written a bunch of posts about it, which we can link up or kind of get out to people, and which we talk about in boot camp all the time. But for example, like a college student, one of the ways that college students can get approved for these top-end credit cards is because credit card companies will let you use scholarships that you're getting as part of your income. So let's say you make $5,000 a year as a college student who works part-time in the cafeteria. Well, if you have a $30,000 scholarship, you can actually say, I have $35,000 in income. But that's not something I ever knew, or really probably most people know, 99% of people would know, because it doesn't say it there anywhere. But because a reader of mine had said, my daughter got a credit card because of this, it's kind of like that. He told me, and I was like, is this really true? And I did some digging and found it out, and then I had a friend who did it. So there's a lot of ways to, I don't want to say puff up your income, but a lot of things that will count. And there are credit card companies, when you call in, a lot of times if you apply and you don't get instantly approved, you call in and you talk to a person. And that's always really good because you can you describe to them your situation, and they actually have the power to say yes or no there. So it's really neat. You can call in and you can say, hey, here's my situation. I have these scholarships, this and that. I'm an honor roll student, whatever. That's for a college student example, and be able to get approved. So no matter what situation you're in, there is the possibility that you would get approved. And you may even get approved if your credit score is high and you've always paid stuff off before. Even if your income's low, you're probably going to get approved, at least for the first couple of cards as well. Anyway.
Excellent. Well, that probably brings me on to a question that I know you guys have also talked to us about a little bit as well. Is if you're not a big consumer and you don't buy much, like if you're not actually going through these cards and you've got these cards that you're getting the points for up front, but then you're not using them. Any sort of tips there? I know you probably go way more into that, but
these are great questions because these are kind of the in-depth topics that we really do cover in bootcamp that you can't hit on in an hour or anything like that. But the exact questions I love hearing because it means people are asking the right questions. Because I don't ever want anyone to say like, oh yeah, so when you get a credit card, you have to spend $3,000 in 3 months for some cards to get the bonus, and so the people who are saying to me, oh, that's easy, I don't care, I'm just going to go buy a new TV, that's not the people I want. I actually tell them, like, listen, I don't want to be a part of this. I'm going to actually tell you not to sign up. Do not open that credit card. Like, it only if you're making regular spending. So for people who don't have a lot of spending, for example, that's me a lot of the times. Now there are parts of the year where I spend more on different things. There are a lot of ways to make these minimum spend requirements. And so once you spend $3,000 in 3 months, let's say the card says you have to spend $3,000 in 3 months to get 50,000 points. Once you spend that $3,000 in 3 months, you don't have to spend on it again. Like, you cannot touch that card forever. In essence, like, it's not like you have to continually spend on it. You have to make the minimum spend requirement in the beginning. And a few really quick ways that you can do that without actually going out and spending a lot of money. One way is to add an authorized user. So, for example, when I was spending a lot less when I was younger, I'd say to my parents, hey, do you want to be an authorized user? So what they do is they get a credit card with my number on it, but in their name, and they can go then spend on that. And it counts against our minimum spending requirement. And then they'd write me a check, or they'd give me cash, or they'd PayPal me, whatever, and they'd pay me back for it. So that's a really cool way if you have family members or anyone you trust, obviously. If they have expenses or they just spend more than you, they can spend on your card, and then you can go for the minimum spend. You can do stuff like buying gift cards. So that's a really neat way where you can say, okay, I know I'm not going to spend $3,000 in 3 months, but I do know that I always have to buy gas. So you can go out and you can buy $1,000 worth of gas gift cards to a gas station. And so you're spending on the credit card in that 3-month beginning period, but you just have those gift cards to use whenever you want. I mean, they don't ever expire, so you could use them over the next 2 years. You can do that with like regular Visa and MasterCard gift cards as well. They usually have a tiny little fee, but it's worth it to pay it for that reason. So you can prepay a lot of expenses. So, for example, you can prepay health insurance. That's a big one. If you know you're going to have to pay health insurance every year, maybe you just pay it all at once instead of paying it monthly, or car insurance, or any of those. There's a lot of those kind of recurring expenses that you can prepay. And then another one of my favorites is donating to stuff like 𝗣𝗲𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗧. So 𝗣𝗲𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 is you donate. Well, you don't really donate. You lend to them, and they microfinance in developing countries to help people get money and get started, and then they pay you back. Yeah, they pay you back over time. So you go to 𝗣𝗲𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 and you see someone in Cambodia needs a new motorbike for his business and he can't afford $1,000 for it. You can donate. You don't have to donate 1,000. You could donate 20 or 40 or whatever. But you donate to 𝗣𝗲𝗀. You get to see their story, and then they have like a 99.1% return rate. So it's almost guaranteed you will be getting all your money back. So you can donate, and then you'll have to pay that credit card bill off. So you have to have a little money there to pay that off, but you'll get that money back later, and you're also helping someone else out. So that's a really awesome way to spend in that 3-month period or 4-month period when you have to make the spending to get the points, but not obviously spend anything.
Yeah, absolutely great. Can you spell that 𝗣𝗲𝗄 for us as well, please?
Yeah, it's 𝗣𝗲𝗄𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, and it's phenomenal. I've donated a bunch of different times to different causes, and again, I say donate. What I mean is like I lend, and then you get paid back, and it's a worldwide organization that's very well known, so it's not anything that you have to be worried about, and it's really cool because you can actually pick who you want to send it to. Like there's cases there, and you can say I want to go and give it that. So those are a lot of ways that you can spend, or you can hit the minimum spend without spending anything extra, especially if you don't spend a lot of money. You can do all those types of things.
All right, I'm going to try and hit you up for a yes and no, just so we can move on to the next couple of questions. Just a straight yes or no from a Canadian. Can you amalgamate frequent flyer points from different credit airlines?
So amalgamate, I believe I know the meaning of this word, like combine?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, okay. I told you guys I wasn't that smart. No, yeah, you cannot, you can, the answer generally, no. So if it's like American Airlines and United and you have 50,000 in one and 50,000 in the other, you cannot combine them and say I have 100,000. You have to use them separately. There's only a very few instances where you can earn certain points that then can combine with others, but overall, no. They're kind of, think of them as separate entities. They live in separate bubbles. You have to use them separately.
All right, cool. Thanks for that. That was a good short answer, though. So there was a lady who has now left the group, but she just sort of had a funny one that I'll mention. She, on your example where you had the free the one way after your return, she's like, well, how do you get back to New York from Alaska? So we'll be sharing that very soon with these cheap fares, I think.
Yeah, and what's really cool is you can obviously then use frequent flyer miles to fly one way. So like basically you built that Alaska portion into your other ticket so you didn't spend more frequent flyer miles, and then you'd use 12,000 miles to fly from Alaska home. So instead of paying on both ends, you're paying once, and then you have to pay to get back, or as you mentioned, you can buy a ticket. But it's just a way to kind of, you save frequent flyer miles because you're adding it on to that first ticket.
Yeah, that's it. It was just a good example. Okay, so Deb was asking about, she's really interested in learning how to book more on the open jaw trips. I would definitely say that the boot camp and the Facebook group, and you've got everything already in there about that. Anything else to add to that?
Not. I mean, they're basically when you go to book those. Yeah, I mean that's why we started bootcamp, was to explain kind of that advanced stuff to people who already knew, and then we realized that a lot of people wanted to join who were beginners, so we built back and put the beginner stuff in. But yeah, that is kind of that stuff. I mean, that'll save that's crazy when you get to do that kind of stuff. And so booking it, we explain it all in bootcamp, but really a lot of times you just have to know where to look. Like I gave you that Qantas example. When you know where to look for the flights, you can find them, and then it's pretty straightforward to actually book them. But you have to be able to find them first and know kind of which rules are allowed. So knowing you can go Europe to Asia, but not that you can go, for example, Europe and then down to Africa or something like that.
Cool. Somebody had asked. Let me just see if she's still here. Breeze had been asking. Yes, I think you are. For the stopovers, if you don't know how much time you want to spend in the second or third place, how do you book the entire itinerary? I think having watched you book some of your flights already and just knowing that you can just book, change, cancel, move things around, again, this is more that you're wanting to be, going into more depth inside of boot camp.
Yeah, we will definitely go more in depth. Different airlines have different rules. Some airlines will say once you start the flight, like once you take that first flight, you can't change anything. Other airlines will say you can change it, but it's with like a little bit of a fee. But usually that fee is worth it if you're paying an extra $75 to change the date because you're not sure, but you build it in just to be safe. It's usually worth it. And you can change it. Usually, what I tell people when booking it is, try to have your dates as close to possible as what you think will happen, and then if you do have to go and change it, then you make the decision, is it worth me paying $75 to change it to another day, yes or no. But most airlines will let you change it afterwards. Only a very few amounts say like, no, that's it, you can't do it.
Okay, Dee had asked a question here, but I think she probably chose one of the hardest topics, I believe. She said, are you going to go into some concrete how-to, for example, the fuel charges? I just want to put this out probably to everybody. It's like, has anybody picked up some concrete how-tos that they're happy with so far, but, just wanting to kind of get forward on this? I mean, it's like you say, it's going to take a good 4 to 5 hours to really get your head around it, let alone every other depth into it. But yeah, we've got people coming in saying absolutely incredible information. So the fuel charges, is that one just one of those rabbit holes?
That is what we did with Bootcamp. Is we created. It was actually I could not find anywhere where all the information was in one place, so I actually went out and gleaned it from like 15 sources and made a whole chart of like, if you fly on this airline and use these miles, you will get hit with a fuel surcharge. If you fly on that, it comes down to kind of two things: what miles you're using, and then what airlines you're flying on. And so it really is kind of like a little matrix. Like if you're on this and this, then you don't pay it. If you're on this and this, you do pay it. And the only way to know is to know which ones it is. So to not pay the fuel surcharges, the short answer on how not to pay it is you earn the miles that don't charge you the fuel surcharges. So, for example, United is a great example. So right now, I mean, this can change at any moment because they can always change their rules. But right now, the reason I love United Miles the most is that you can use your United Miles and fly on any of their partners, and you will never have a fuel surcharge, which is great because that's why I tell people who are first getting into it, use United because you don't have to worry about that extra little added part. But some other ones become more complicated. For example, with American Airlines, if you fly on American Airlines to Europe, you don't pay fuel surcharges. But if you have American Airlines miles and you fly on British Airways, you do pay fuel surcharges. So that's a rabbit hole, but not even a really hard rabbit hole because you just get the graph and you're like, okay, boom, 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 no fuel surcharges, and then obviously you try to book the ones with no fuel surcharges. That's basically the short answer to fuel surcharges.
All right, awesome. I think the big question here is what miles did you use? And that would probably, I don't know, can you surmise that in about, let me ask, in under 60 seconds?
Sure. So to give you guys a brief overview, I use United Miles quite a bit. Because they're really easy and they have very good coverage in the Star Alliance to get anywhere in the world. You don't have to worry about fuel surcharges. I use American Airlines quite a bit because other than going to Europe, you don't get fuel surcharges on them. I use British Airway miles, which are really good for very specific trips. They're probably the hardest ones to use. Going down South America, coincidentally, is very good with British Airway miles. Going to Europe is very bad from North America with British Airway miles, but they're also really good for domestic U.S. and then inner Europe flights. And then I use Southwest a ton for domestic flights here because there is a really cool pass called the Companion Pass, which we won't get into, but basically my wife is able to fly for free with me anytime I fly, and she doesn't even have to use miles. If I use miles, she just can get on the plane with me for free, or she pays $5 in her taxes, and that's it. So those are kind of the four big ones that I use.
Yeah, I love the Southwest ones. Jan just asked, can Aussies get United? Anybody can sign up to any frequent flyer mile program anywhere in the world, no matter where you're from, but the credit card side of things is different.
Exactly, and that's one thing I want to clarify with that. Yeah, you're exactly right. Anyone can be a member of the frequent flyer mile program. It's totally free to sign up for any frequent flyer mile program. One neat thing, and I won't get too into this, but we do talk about this in boot camp, is if you fly on an airline, like if you pay to get a ticket and you fly, you get miles for that flight. So if you're flying on a Star Alliance flight, you want to credit those miles to the airline that's best for you. So, for example, if you fly on Star Alliance, you wouldn't want to credit them to like Lufthansa because they have fuel surcharges, but you do want to credit them to United. So when you fly, you get to pick what airline you credit the miles to. So if you are someone who flies a decent amount, that's really important to know because you can build up a pretty good base of United miles even if you're an Australian if you're flying on their partner airlines.
Cool. Gavin's just shared a link with some partner airlines for the Qantas flight. And I've also got another link that's been shared by Jennifer saying that she hasn't actually used this site, but there is a site for exchanging frequent flyer miles and hotel points. It's called points.com /home. Do you know that one?
Yeah, it's okay. The only problem with it is they charge sometimes a really big fee. So let's say you have Qantas miles and you want to get United miles. Probably no one's going to trade you because United are better than Qantas. But if they did, points.com has a pretty hefty charge on making the transfer in there. So it can work in very specific instances, but usually it's pretty bad value unless it's like you need a small amount to like top it off to get a flight or something. It's usually pretty prohibitively expensive, and that same thing goes for actually buying miles from airlines and or even transferring miles to like a family member from airlines. They charge you a lot to do that. So unless it's a really specific example, it's not usually a good investment to buy miles from the airlines. It's usually pretty expensive.
All right, cool. Gavin's been using Kiva for years. It's a great idea. I love it. I actually learned a lot out of that today as well. Dee wanted to know that roughly how many hours of instruction are inside of the boot camp?
Yeah, so what we've done is we've cut it into like little chunks because I think that's the way people learn the best. So we have 15 we have 15 plus another 7. So I think there's 22 videos in there, and each one of those videos is usually between 3 to 7 minutes. And so what it is, to kind of give them an idea, is like a lot of times I'll talk about a specific thing, like a theme, like we'll talk about stopovers, which I kind of touched on here, but I'll actually on the whiteboard draw it out, like here's what a stopover looks like. You can go to Paris, you can go to London, you can go here. Kind of draw it out for you and explain it as we're doing it. And then what we do is we'll have a second supplementary video with that, and it'll be a screen capture. So it'll be like, okay, you understand the concept. Let's show you how to do it. And I'll go onto united.com, and I'll show you exactly what buttons to hit to make one, and to look and to search and things like that. So as an overall amount of time, I'd probably say it comes down to about 4 to 5 hours, and each video is small so that it's not, you don't kind of daze out with it. It's kept short on purpose. So you have a 3 to 7 minute video, you watch it, okay, cool, I want to go on to the next one, or I'm going to stop there, or what have you. And we do a lot of talking. We do talk a little bit about accommodations in those videos, and there's a little bit about paid flights and stuff, and budget airlines as well. So it's mostly frequent flyer miles, but there's kind of other travel hacks scattered in throughout.
Awesome. Oh, it's value packed, and I think it's more that lifetime or ongoing aspect that everyone just keeps supporting themselves in the community as well. Gavin is in Australia, and he's just said that both Qantas and Virgin have travel debit cards, which are good for points as well.
Yeah, if you can get a travel debit, that's great. Usually they don't offer like those huge bonuses in the beginning, but they're also a little kind of an extra way to earn some points, which is always nice. And it's a debit, so if you don't want to open up too many credit cards for whatever reason, it's nice because it's a debit card.
Yeah.
In the U.S., we don't really have that. It's almost all credit cards that offer the points.
Yeah, and like you say, it's every country's different. Speaking of the countries, for people answering your question before, we had the dream destinations of Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Thailand, Italy, Canada. There was Boston, New Zealand, Australia, Thailand, DC, Paris, Rome, Portugal, Central, then South America. Obviously the Thai Islands, Skilling in the Dolomites, Mediterranean coast, all sorts of stuff going on. So it was definitely
all over the world. That's awesome.
All right. Well, so many people are saying thank you so much for the amazing info. It's incredible information.
I'm going to show them a picture. Oh, we didn't even get into the guarantee.
Well, it's written beautifully on your website as well.
It is. I should just mention it to you guys too. Yeah, we do guarantee. It's a $1,000 guarantee that you'll book $1,000 worth of plane tickets in the first 6 months, or we do, assuming you want to travel in the first 6 months. Maybe you want to further in the future. That's fine too. Or we'll give you your money back because we know it works. It's worked for people who have gone through, and we just think it's a neat way to say to you, like, hey, we're going to help you do this no matter what. And I think once you get in, you'll see that once you start learning it and you're in the boot camp or in the Facebook group, people are just so inspiring to me because of all the places they're going, and people are giving advice on flying to Iceland and all this different kind of crazy stuff. So we will, if you don't book the plane tickets that you want to book, we'll give you your money back, and that is our guarantee there. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else. We were going to show them the Google Flights Explorer though.
Oh, sorry. Yep, here we are. Google Flights Explorer, yay!
So I could do a whole nother webinar about like finding good paid tickets, because occasionally it does actually make sense to pay for tickets. Even if you have frequent flyer miles, sometimes you just get such a good deal. Like we're flying to South Africa in September for $300, so it doesn't even, and that's without using frequent flyer miles. So it doesn't even make sense to use frequent flyer miles. The value isn't there. But one of the really cool things that I've learned recently, and as you guys mentioned, Google does not show this. When you Google this, it doesn't come up anywhere.
While you're pulling that up, if you don't mind, I just want to answer Dee's question saying,
sure.
How can we contact Travis if we want to do the boot camp later? We're actually, the $100 discount is on offer until almost the end of the week, Thursdays. So while we'll have the replay playing and available, you can get through on the boot camp with $100 saving until Thursday.
Right, and I should mention too that the way that boot camp's structured is you will be getting all the information in emails, but it's for you to keep forever. So when people ask me, hey, I want to do this, but I'm busy at work right now, I don't have time to do it, you get all that stuff forever. So it really is a work at your own pace type thing. What's really neat, if you join early or you join now, what's really cool is you can get in the Facebook group, you can kind of see what people are doing, and even if you don't have time to go through all the videos right now, you just get a feel for it. And what I always tell people, because they come to me and say like, hey, I want to go to Italy in July, what should I do, how can I do it if I start now? And I'm like, well, it's May, you know, I mean, the point, this stuff doesn't happen overnight, so I would urge anyone, if they are interested, of course, to get the $100 discount, because that's, you know, that's just more money in your pocket for traveling. But also, it is work at your own pace. So if you get in now and you start hanging out in the Facebook group and you start asking questions, you take it as it comes. It's just nice to get a feel for this and kind of dip your toes in now, and then you're ready to go when it is time to actually travel, as opposed to trying to do everything, you know, when a trip actually comes up. So that would be my little thing. Yeah, you get it forever. You're always the videos are yours to keep. You can watch them as many times as you want, and you're always in the Facebook group. So if you do think it's going to be worth it, there's a good chance you should probably try to get in with that $100 offer that Nat and Jody are offering with the Sit Fly.
So now on to Google. Yay.
Yeah, so this is, I don't even know where I found this secret out. I tell everyone about it, but it really is a secret. So Google Flights Explorer, and just to show you guys that it doesn't come up when you Google it, I guess I was already in Google. When you type in Google Flights Explorer, and you'll see in here it doesn't come up on the search engine, so they hide this. The only way to get to it is if you type it in the actual address, google.com/flights/explorer, and it'll bring it up. And what's so awesome about this is it allows you to look at any region. So now, for right now, I believe you can only fly out of the U.S. So in the from box, you have to put somewhere in the U.S., at least to my knowledge, like right now. I didn't work out of Southeast Asia. So let's say we're in Denver right now. What's cool is usually when you go onto a website is you put in to, and you put in London or something like that. What you can do here with Google Flights is you can put in a whole region. So you can put in Europe, and you pick like how long your trip's going to be. You can make it any amount of time that you want here. And what it will do is then it will show you every major city in that region. So for example here, and it'll sort it by price. So right now you see Reykjavik is the cheapest from Denver at $699.
That's round trip. I just want to point that out. Round trip or return trip in Australia, we call it that way. But it's just giving huge.
It's incredible the amount of info you have right here. So you can see per day, okay, it's $699 for the beginning of May or mid-May. It jumps up for whatever reason to $1,300 on Thursday, and then you see, okay, as we get into the summer in June, it goes up quite a bit. And then you can actually use this little thing here and go over months, and then you'll see, okay, it's really expensive during the summer, which makes sense. And then, but if you don't want to go to Reykjavik, that's fine. You scroll down, and it'll show for every city in that region. So for a lot of people who travel like us, it's really about getting to a certain place. So especially like in Southeast Asia or Europe, where you can hop on a budget airline. If you fly into London, and London is $400 cheaper than Paris, well then you can just hop on a train for $30 and get there. So it just gives you so much really neat information about going to a certain region. And again, you can put in any region in the world. I do think that you have to say you're leaving out of America, although let's like try Sydney. Maybe it'll work for something like that. But it's just, this is something that I've been using. Okay, so flights from Australia are not currently supported. So if you're leaving out of America, you can really find anything you want. It's kind of at your fingertips, which is really neat because as I mentioned, I do this a lot in Southeast Asia because I don't really care where I'm going in Southeast Asia, and I want to see everything in the world anyway. So, and it's just so cheap when you get there to get around. So I would fly into Bangkok for $890 instead of flying into into Kuala Lumpur for 1,300, and then I would just get a cheap $30 flight down from Bangkok to Kuala Lumpur if that's where I wanted to go.
Yeah, look, I'm just going to add in that even when I've done this type of thing on Skyscanner, and I'm now going to start using this as well, is to look at, even if Google Flights Explorer is only working out of the US at the moment, it's a good way to do it from wherever you're coming from to find the flights. It's just really giving you the different cities that are available. So it's heaps of fun. It's a bit like, and like I said, we can talk about it for ages, but we're definitely, we're only 10 minutes off going for 2 hours on here. So we've got a few more thanks coming in. Jan is saying that she's definitely keen to come in, but she was asking the question of how do you get the cheap day before travel? I think that is probably more for the boot camp as well, but
and that's like very that's very specific. We get it because we use Southwest points. They're really good for cheap day before. Also, I will just to answer it really quickly, it depends what miles you have. British Airways, I've been able to get day of flights in Europe. For like we had to fly, our bus was not going from Prague to Amsterdam all of a sudden. They called us that day and said this bus is not going, and we booked flights for 3 hours ahead. And we actually then went to the airport and we paid, I think, $15 a person to fly from Prague to Paris. We ended up going to, but it just depends on the miles. Different miles are good for different things, but it gives you another bullet in your chamber for when you do kind of get in those situations. It's just the more options, the better. And so the more options I can teach you with the paid flights and the frequent flyer miles, when you have those options, then that time you can decide, hey, what should I use or how should I do it? And this certainly gives you a lot of, like you said, a lot of bullets in the chamber because it opens up a lot of doors for sure.
Awesome. Well, I think we're going to round it out there. So it's definitely getting on in time now, and we definitely want to get this recording out to those that were in time zones such as the UK. That is definitely that's a funny photo.
Oh yeah, here's the I'm nothing special. Just to prove to you guys that like I am that this could be done by anyone. I already mentioned 4 years ago I never had a single frequent flyer mile to my name. Didn't even know they existed really. I used to get sick on planes. I told that story, and we don't have a lot of money. We can't afford to buy plane tickets all around the world, and so we're able to do it. So yeah, and that's me getting sick on a boat. But I just wanted to bring this up. Oh no, it's not there. I had a little thank you, but I guess it's gone. So.
I just want to say thank you to you, and there's lots of thanks coming in from everybody, from all over the world, including even just across the road. So this is really cool. Thank you so much for your time for doing this, Travis, and thank you so much even more for giving such an awesome discount. I mean, what's that, 20%? Is that right? Yes, it's huge. No, it's more than that. Yeah. Let me work it out. What is it? 20%. 20% discount is absolutely massive. So anyone can get in touch with you through going to extrapackofpeanuts.com. Everyone has to sign up to your or start downloading your podcast because it is so awesome and keep you at that #1 status on your travel podcast. And, of course, you are in the House Sitting World group and the Income for Nomads group and the House Sitting Academy group as well. So not that you've got a lot of time for us over here because you have got a really busy group in the boot camp.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and the discount is, I'm very happy to give the discount to people because I know for so many years it was prohibitively expensive for me to travel. When I learned about house sitting and which I learned about after frequent flyer miles, it opened up a whole world for me, and the whole point is to get people out there to do it, and we think this is a great price point for people saying, all right, it's gonna motivate me to do it. I'm gonna invest a little bit in myself and go out and do this, and then of course the return on investment. I mean, you're gonna be flying everywhere in the world for almost
forever.
Free. So
yeah,
it just keeps happening.
And the best part is that as anything changes with regards to credit cards, to points, to bonuses, to everything, you're all plugged in and keeping up to date in the group as well, which is bloody awesome. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and I hope there was enough nuggets in there for you to take away and just really see what's possible, because the more people traveling, the better. We all know that. Absolutely. All right, until next time, we shall see you on the next expert webinar. This has been so much fun. Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.